This episode of Safe and Sound is part of our Summer Safety series. Each episode focuses on different challenges that arise mostly in the summer months. We speak with people impacted by these challenges and learn how the divisions within the Department of Public Safety help protect and support Ohioans. In this episode, DPS Director Andy Wilson speaks with Kimberly Schwind, Assistant Director of the Ohio Traffic Safety Office, and Leah Fullenkamp, who lost her husband to a distracted driver.
John Fullenkamp grew up working on his parents' farm in Shelby County in western Ohio. After college, he married his longtime girlfriend, Leah. When they had the opportunity to buy a farm on their own, they jumped at it. They renovated the house that had stood on the property for well over 120 years. When Leah's dad passed away, she and John bought her family's farm. They had soon welcomed 4 children. The Fullenkamps were happy. Life seemed perfect. In one tragic and preventable moment, that all changed. June 16th of 2018 was just like any other day on the farm. John was on his tractor crossing the road when he was rear-ended by a driver who was shopping on her phone while she was behind the wheel. Leah was suddenly a widow with 4 young children. Now she's on a mission to keep other families from having to endure the pain that changed her life in a blink of a fly. Leah Fullenkamp joins us today to explain the meaning behind that name. Leah, thank you for joining us and for being so willing to share your story. I know it can't be easy.
Thanks. Yeah, it's never easy, and it doesn't get easier the more that I share it, but I hope that it helps makes an impact and prevents this from becoming somebody else's story.
Again, we just cannot express enough our gratitude for your willingness to come and hopefully help other Ohioans to avoid the pain that you've had to endure yourself. So we certainly appreciate it. Also with us today is Kimberly Schwind. Kimberly is the Assistant Director of the Ohio Traffic Safety Office. And Kimberly will talk to us about distracted driving and a new state law that focuses on that dangerous problem. Kimberly, welcome. How big is a problem in Ohio with distracted driving?
It's a huge problem, and it's something that's so underreported that it's difficult to tell the scope of the problem. But if you think about this, many studies have shown that distracted driving is just as dangerous as impaired driving. And since 2018, there have been nearly 64,000 distracted-related crashes in Ohio that we know about. In the same time period, there have been over 69,000 OVI-related crashes in Ohio. And I tell you that comparison because the point is that both distracted and impaired driving can have that same devastating outcome.
Kimberly, we certainly appreciate all the great work that you and the Ohio Traffic Safety Office are doing in this space. And we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes as we go through the podcast. But I want to start with Leah's story. And Leah, again, I just cannot thank you enough for being here. Let's go back to that day in 2018 when you lost your husband. Look, you had a lot on your plate. You just had your 4th child. You were recovering from a foot surgery yourself. And if you could, just take us back to that tragic day for you.
So the day before, the Friday, I had a major foot surgery. And going in, I knew I wouldn't be able to walk for 6 weeks. And we had planned it at the beginning of summer, hoping that I'd be better by back to school. So Saturday morning came, and John had some work to do at my dad's farm, which we had just bought. I was at home, had my 4 kids. At that time, they were 9, 6, 3, and 8 months. The youngest was crawling, and I was at home and just hanging out with them that afternoon. John's mom had called, and she wanted to pick up the kids and was going to take them to go pick out a birthday present for one of the cousins and also take John's supper. So she picked them all up and went to my dad's house first to drop them off food. And as they were approaching the intersection, she saw the crash. She recognized the tractor. She brought my kids to my uncle's house, which is half a block away at most. And her, along with my uncle, they went to the crash scene and confirmed that it was John and were there for a while. Meanwhile, I was at home just hanging out because I couldn't walk, sitting on the couch and doing what we all do when we're at home. I was playing on my phone on Facebook, and one of my dad's neighbors posted online that prayers for the farmer that just lost their life in the crash on the road. And of course, I instantly freak out because, not many people take their tractors far distances. And I knew where she lives. So it either had to be John or my uncle or possibly my grandpa. And there could be one neighbor, maybe. So I called John. He wasn't answering. I called my grandma. I called my uncle. I called everybody that I could possibly think of to see if they had heard anything or knew who it was. Called the lady who had posted this. And the people that already knew just didn't answer my call. Didn't want to be the one to tell me. Just didn't answer. The ones that didn't know answered my call, and they're like, yeah, we'll drive by and we'll see and we'll call you back. So I did the worst possible thing by sending more people to the crash scene. And once they realized it was John, they didn't call me back.
They didn't want to call you.
My mother-in-law wanted to be the one to tell me. So the crash happened at 4:00 in the afternoon. It was till probably 7:00 until she came back to our house. And when she came back, she confirmed that it was in fact John. And as soon as I found out, I had people coming over already. And so I had to instantly tell our kids, because I wanted to be the one to tell them. I didn't want somebody to come up to the house, like offering condolences, like, sorry about your dad. And they're like, what happened? Did he fall down? So life completely changed in that instant. That evening we had 80 people at our house, just offering condolences. And it was a complete whirlwind because all of a sudden, I was a widow. I was a single mom to 4 kids. I couldn't walk, all of that within 24 hours. Later that evening, we got a phone call from the organ donation, like Ohio Life, about donating his organs. And because he died at the crashing, he couldn't do his major organs, but he was able to donate bones and tissues. And I think he helped well over 200 people with this. But it was an absolute crazy whirlwind day I never want to relive.
So there's about a 3-hour period between when you first find out about the crash and then your mother-in-law comes and confirms that it's John for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, close to that.
And I just can't imagine the fear and the trauma. And how old were your kids at that time?
I had a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, and 8 months.
And then your mother-in-law comes to the house and she confirms for you. She tells you that it was John and that John was killed. And he was killed there at the scene. Is that correct?
Correct. They had called for a life flight, but he was gone before it could even take off.
And then you immediately have to tell your children. And I just, as a parent, as a spouse, I just can't imagine having to live that and to go through that.
Honestly, it was awful. With the whole surgery, I couldn't go to the scene myself. I couldn't even go outside because we have steps to get into the house. And with the pain pills, I couldn't drive there. So it was just waiting. It was horrible.
And are people able that evening, either law enforcement, first responders, anybody like that, to give you some of the facts about what happened with the crash, or are you just basically getting the basic information?
Just the basic information from his mom. Law enforcement came maybe, in my timeline's a little fuzzy at this point, but I'm going to say like a week later.
Okay.
That I had called their office because we needed a copy of a police report or we needed something. And they didn't want to email it to me. So they came out and kind of went over, what exactly had happened. And that's when we found out that she was on her phone. Because up to this point, we didn't know. We didn't know if she had a heart attack or was sneezing or, we had no idea. So it was about a week later that we figured out that it was because of distracted driving, because of shopping.
Can you take a few minutes and share that? What were the facts, or what did you find the facts regarding the crash to be?
So at that point, And she had given her statement, just saying that, she was shopping online and she looked up at the very last second and saw him and crashed into them from behind. And that's all we knew for months. And the crash happened in June. Around December that year, they did a crash recreation where they had to figure out, just how distracted was she and how long did she have to see him? Did John pull out in front of him or her? What actually happened? And through the crash creation, they were able to get a tractor just like John's, a sprayer just like John's, and run through the crash again and again. And they determined that she had at least 16 seconds to look up and see him to prevent the crash.
She had, because of that online shopping, she had been distracted for at least 16 seconds before she hit your husband.
Yep.
Oh. Kimberly.
It's forever when you're driving.
Kimberly, follow-up questions for Leah about the crash?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine the devastation, and what went through your mind. And I mean, at any point, was there anger? Was there, had you heard about distracted driving before? Had you thought it was a big problem on the roadways?
I mean, at that point, it wasn't as big of a deal to me. I mean, driving down the road, you'd see people on their phone, but I just always thought as long as we took care of ourselves and did what we were supposed to do, we would be fine. It never really, I know that sounds naive, but it never really occurred to me that how interconnected everybody is, that you driving like an idiot really impacts everybody else on the road. Like, it's a thing, but you don't realize just how scary it is.
Leah, clearly you had to be devastated. Your life, again, just absolutely changes just like that, blink of an eye. Your one afternoon, your entire world changes. Talk us through the days, the weeks, the months following the loss of your husband and how you try to adjust to the new normal.
It was absolutely crazy. I mean, at first, just with the foot surgery, there was so much that I couldn't even do. Like, I couldn't even go upstairs yet. And that's where all the kids' bedrooms were. So we had my aunts would spend the night with us for the first couple of weeks, just getting used to, Greta was still waking up in the middle of the night, getting her out of the crib, helping with that. Thankfully, I was a teacher and I was home for the summer. So I did have a little bit of time to get used to life. But everything was completely different. Even just, how am I going to mow the grass? How am I going to do any of these things? Yeah. And even still, almost 5 years later, we're still adjusting. There's still situations that come up and I'm like, well, how are we going to approach this one? And just the trauma of it all and the kids getting used to the new situation. It was such a blur.
Look, out of this devastation and out of your loss, you actually have been able to find some strength and purpose. And through that, part of that has been your decision to share your story and share the story of your husband's death, share the story of the circumstances that caused that death, and to actually start an organization called Blink of a Fly. Tell us about that. Tell us about how you decided to share this story, and tell us about Blink of a Fly.
That fall, I went back to school, and honestly, it was horrible. My kids weren't doing well. I wasn't doing well, so I made the decision to stay home, at least until my youngest was more self-sufficient. And I knew that only being around kids 24/7 and not having any adult interaction without having any purpose wouldn't be good for any of us. And I really, really wanted to hopefully prevent my story from becoming somebody else's story. Like, I knew how hard everything was, and I really didn't want anybody else to have to go through it. So I knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't quite know what it was. And throughout that first year, we would have a fly come to visit us. And as crazy as that sounds, completely 100% true. It happened within the first week after the crash. And it wasn't a normal fly. It wasn't like, there's 100 flies in your house because you left food out. It was a fly that would come and land on us when we're talking about something that John would have cared about, and flew away when we talked about something different. It would be there on the first day of school. It would hang out with my kids while we were waiting on the bus, and then it would fly away. It was there Christmas morning. It was there on birthdays. Normal day, not every day by any means, but enough that we couldn't ignore it. And I looked up, what does the fly mean? Like, why is this a thing? Am I crazy? Am I not showering enough? What's happening? And there's lots of meanings online, just like everything. But I looked, and two that stood out to me is like, somebody wants to talk to you. And I'm sure John has all kinds of things to say about our life, both good and bad. And the second thing is that, a fly can survive and thrive in the shittiest of situations. And our situation was pretty shitty. I mean, it wasn't something that we wanted for ourselves. It wouldn't be something that I want for my kids. But we were in it, and it was happening. So I could choose to survive, or I could thrive. And I was hoping with the goal that we would thrive. So I knew I wanted to create something, and I knew the story of the fly, but I didn't know a name. So I went to Facebook and I asked my friends, I'm like, okay, this is what I want to do, but I need a name. You need a name immediately when you start it. You can't decide 2 months later. And within 10 seconds, somebody came up with, in the blink of a fly, a little play on in the blink of an eye, because everything happened so quickly, and it had the fly in there. So it started in July of 2019. And since then, we've been able to go to, I don't even know, 80 different schools, probably, different podcasts. We have a Facebook page that has maybe like 13,000 people on it. We've reached people in every single state. The flies have gone to every single state. We partnered with Farm Bureau, and we have a couple of billboards throughout the state, as well as yard signs. And I think it's been good for me, because people will say, I used to do it, but now I don't touch my phone anymore. And although you'll never know the crash that didn't happen, I can kind of hold on to that maybe we prevented somebody else from being in this situation.
So tell us, what do you do with the blink of a fly message? What is that message, and how do you get that message out to schools, to kids, to community groups?
At the core, it's eyes up, phone down. That there is absolutely nothing on your phone that's worth doing when you're driving, that's worth killing somebody over. Absolutely nothing. I can't think of anything. I've never had anybody else that's been able to. So I have a Facebook page, and I post, our daily happenings just in our family, what life is like, and sprinkle in the distracted driving message, and sprinkle in, the importance of estate planning and having your things together for your family. It's a little bit of a mix of everything, which really helps, I think, because, if you're just saying, keep your phone down, people are going to stop listening. But when you don't know what's coming next, it keeps people engaged. My first school, the sheriff's office contacted me, and they wanted me to do a presentation. And I knew in the back of my mind that was something that I always wanted to do, but I didn't know if I could do it without breaking down. So the first probably 10 presentations, I went to with the sheriff of our county, who handled the investigation. And, I told our story, and then he would talk about like the legality side and what happens and that kind of thing. And then word of mouth, just kind of, school started reaching out about coming in. So, I mean, it's been a little bit of everything.
You actually hand out visual reminders to the kids, just a little token that they can have when they're driving, to remind them of the importance of not being distracted and paying attention to what you're doing. What do you give the kids?
Yes. So we give them a little static cling fly that can stay inside their car. It clings to any glass. And the message is, you're only a couple of seconds away from putting yourself or somebody else in an awful situation. to make the choice that the better choice. Keep your phone put away and survive and thrive in the situation that you're in. Don't put yourself in that situation. Make the good choice.
Leah, I hope you find some peace in the fact that your message is getting out there. And, we met a couple of months ago, and you told me the story. And I actually took a couple of your static cling flies back. I have a teenage driver. I took back home. And when I showed my daughter, who's 17, the fly and told her your story, she's like, Dad, yeah, I know. I know what that is. And you and I mean, we live probably 2 hours away from each other. So your story is resonating. It's getting out there, and it's making its way through the state. And we certainly appreciate your willingness to share that story. Leah, if folks want to find you and they want to learn more about your program, or maybe they want to schedule you to come speak at their school or speak to their community organization, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
So our Facebook page is just In the Blink of a Fly. We have a website, intheblinkofafly.com. Email address is intheblinkofafly@gmail.com. Any of these ways are perfect and will reach me.
And are you still out there helping schools and giving your presentations, or is life getting too busy for you?
I am. So it just depends on the day in the week as to, if I can make it work. But whenever I get the opportunity, I try. My youngest will be going to kindergarten this year, which is crazy to me. So life's definitely going to look different. I'm not quite sure how it's going to look different, but yes, I still plan on getting out there and giving these messages to as many people as I can.
Leah, you said something earlier in the podcast. You never know. Unfortunately, in this job, in this business, and what we do in public safety, you never know the lives that you actually saved, the accident that didn't happen. But I want to assure you that your work in this space and what you're doing with young drivers and getting the message of how dangerous distracted driving out there, it is making a difference. And without a doubt, you have saved the lives of people who might have picked up their phone or might have done something to distract them from the road. So we certainly appreciate what you're doing, and we just encourage you to continue to share your message and to help save lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Leah joined Governor Mike DeWine when he unveiled Ohio's new Phones Down, It's the Law campaign, when the new distracted driving law took effect in early April 2023. New research from Nationwide Insurance found that nearly half of Ohio's drivers admit to using their phones while they drive. According to the State Highway Patrol, distracted driving caused at least 63,000 crashes over the past 5 years. But the real numbers are likely much higher. That's what moved Governor DeWine and the Ohio Traffic Safety Office to take action. OTSO Assistant Director Kimberly Schwind has been involved in this initiative. Kimberly, thanks again for being here. The statistics on distracted driving are scary. It's shocking to think how underreported those numbers probably are.
Yes, extremely underreported. Leah even mentioned before the crash, she had seen people driving distracted. I'm sure that we have all seen people holding their phones while driving on the roadways. And something that Leah said really kind of struck me is that the woman had 16 seconds before the crash to see and to stop. A texting driver, so if you're just texting and driving, they look away from the road for almost 5 seconds. So if you imagine that going 55 miles an hour, not looking at the road, you could go the length of a football field in 5 seconds. Imagine how far that woman traveled in 16 seconds. So it's just really scary to think about that you're not even looking at the road when you're distracted. And the numbers are so underreported, but still, distracted driving deaths in Ohio represented at least 1 in 36 traffic fatalities in 2022. And so, again, that might seem small, but we know that people have to admit that they were distracted, or a police officer or someone else witnessing a driver on the phone. They have to see that and report that. So we know that those numbers are much, much higher, and that way too many people are distracted on Ohio's roads, and many of our crashes are caused by distracted driving.
Ohio's strengthened distracted driving law actually took effect back in April of 2023. Now, it has a grace period with it, and that grace period lasts until October. And during that grace period, law enforcement officers across the state who see people driving distracted will pull them over and actually just give them a warning. They will educate them on the dangers of distracted driving. Now, that grace period ends in October. In October, law enforcement can actually start issuing tickets for distracted driving. At the rollout of the new law, Governor DeWine debuted the Phones Down, It's the Law campaign video. And we're doing that to get the message out, again, talking about how dangerous it is to be using our phones and to be driving while we're distracted. Kimberly, how is this campaign helping to educate the public?
Well, hopefully people have seen the campaign. We've done our best to get it out everywhere around Ohio. The campaign's goal is to reach all drivers in Ohio. So really it's a universal message. And we've put it out through television, radio ads, billboards, social media, and we have a new website that's phonesdown.ohio.gov. And you might have seen it. It's hopefully you've seen it. The secondary message is kind of a nod to Ohio's rock and roll history, where it says, lock your screen before you rock the road. And so that's really the message is, locking your screen, keeping your phone down. And now, it's the law. It was the law before, but now we have an even stronger law. And so thousands of campaign materials have been distributed to traffic safety partners across Ohio. And you can find more information. We have lots of resources for people to download, to share. It's at phonesdownagain.ohio.gov. So phonesdown.ohio.gov, and there's a whole toolkit on that site.
And Kimberly, you have been really kind of our subject matter expert in this space and have been instrumental in providing guidance with respect to the campaign, with respect to the law itself. If you could just take a few minutes and tell folks what they need to know about Ohio's new distracted driving law.
Yeah, so as of April 4th, 2023, it is now illegal to use or hold a cell phone or electronic device in your hand, lap, or other parts of the body while driving on Ohio's roads. And what's new about this law is if an officer sees you, they can immediately pull you over. So this is a primary offense, meaning that, if you have that phone in your hand, a law enforcement officer can pull you over. So there are some exceptions, like manipulating your phone using just a single touch or swipe. So if you have your phone mounted and you just touch it to answer a call, that's okay. Also, using a phone to report an emergency, holding your phone to your ear during a phone conversation, that's actually okay under this law. Or using your phone while stopped at a traffic light. I will say that there's a difference between holding your phone to your ear and holding it up, using it as a speakerphone. So if you're holding your phone, using it as a speakerphone, that is not okay under the law, and you can get pulled over for that. So, as you mentioned, we're in the 6 month grace period. Starting in October, law enforcement will begin issuing citations. And so the penalties for this are actually stronger than our previous laws. So the first offense, in 2 years, you could get 2 points assessed to your driver's license and up to a $150 fine. But you can help to avoid those points and fines by taking a distracted driving course. A second offense in 2 years, 3 points on your license, up to a $250 fine. Third offense or more in 2 years, 4 points on your license, up to a $500 fine, and a possible 90-day suspension. And keep in mind that fines are doubled if a violation happens in a work zone. So we do want to make people understand that this law is not about collecting fines. It's about changing behavior on our roadways. Ohioans are really counting on everybody to be paying attention. As you heard, it doesn't just impact you if you're using your phone, it impacts everybody else on the roadway. I like to take a look at the solution to distracted driving, to changing this behavior, as a three-legged stool. So you need to have a good law, strong enforcement, and robust education. And you really need to have all three of these legs to change that behavior. And now, with this new law, with the enforcement out there starting They're issuing warnings now, but really starting in October. And the education campaign that we're pumping out there, we're really hoping that we can change the culture on our roadways, get people to put their phones down, and save some lives.
Kimberly, you make such a great point. Really what this is about behavior change. And part of the problem is people just think, look, it couldn't happen to me or it won't happen to me. And really what we want to avoid is any other Ohioan having to experience or endure the loss, pain, grief, and really life-changing circumstances that Leah's had to change or had to experience. And I know it's early. I know the law just went into effect in April, and the campaign is fairly new. But are we getting any initial data? Are we starting to learn anything about what this all is doing to curb distracted driving?
Yeah, we are. And, you know, at the center of all this, when we kind of put our goals up on the board, the central goal is saving lives. And so that's a difficult thing to measure, but that's really what it's all about at the core. And we do have some early data that shows that we are making progress. So data from Cambridge Mobile Telematics shows that in the first month after the law took effect, Ohio drivers were spending less time handling their phones while driving. The data actually shows a 9.1% reduction in distracted driving in Ohio. So drivers are already changing their habits. So that's great. And that's even without the possibility of getting a ticket or having to pay a fine. So when you really dive into it, what the data shows is that in March, Ohio drivers spent an average of 1 minute and 39 seconds interacting with their phones for every hour of driving. So that might not seem like a lot, but keep in mind, 2 seconds of looking away from the road doubles your risk of crashing. And so that's enough to cause some crashes. After the law took effect, so April 4th through May 3rd, Ohio drivers used their phones while driving 1 minute and 30 seconds. So a 9-second drop, or a 9.1% reduction in distracted driving in Ohio. And so this has actually helped to prevent 540 crashes, 1 fatality, and $13 million in economic damages, according to Cambridge Mobile Telematics estimations. And so we're really glad that Ohio drivers are hearing the message. They're taking this seriously, and they're starting to change their behavior. But we know that there's still a lot of work to do, and there's really no acceptable level of distracted driving.
Leah, I want to go back to you for a second. You've heard the statistics. You've heard about our campaign. You go out and you talk to people about this issue. For anyone who isn't taking this law seriously, for anyone who thinks that, this would never happen to me, what do you want them to know?
That honestly, it does. You can't predict when your action or somebody else's action is going to completely change your life, whether it ends it or changes it or whatever it is. The likelihood of it affecting you or one of your loved ones is extremely, extremely high, and you just don't know when. Distracted driving happens any time of the day. It's not just at night like alcohol. It can be any minute. It could be early morning, early night, anytime. You just don't know.
Leah Fullenkamp, thank you so much for taking the time to share your incredibly personal story. Thank you so much for what you're doing across the state. What you do truly does matter, and we truly wish you and your family just all the best as you move forward.
Thank you. And thanks for having me today.
Kimberly Schwind, thank you for all you do. Thank you for the work that you and your team down in the Ohio Traffic Safety Office do. And really, again, same message that I have for you that we had for Leah is what you do matters. And what you do protects people out on the roads, protects our communities, protects our families, protects our friends. And we just appreciate the work that is being done in the Ohio Traffic Safety Office every day for Ohioans. So what's next for the Distracted Driving Public Education Campaign?
So the Phones Down, It's the Law campaign is going to be entering a new phase as we get into September and October when that 6-month grace period ends. So drivers can expect to see more messages out there reminding them to lock their phones before they rock the road, to put those phones down, and to make that a regular habit when they're driving. So drivers can really easily minimize distractions behind the wheel. I know it's so easy. We're so connected to our phones, so it's so easy to just pick it up while you're driving. But you have to keep in mind that you are impacting everybody else on the road when you do that, and you're putting yourself, your family, your friends, everybody else at risk. So a really easy thing to do, if you have that temptation to pick up your phone, is to set up that Do Not Disturb app. That's going to automatically notify people if they message you or they call you that you are driving, and you will get back to them when you get into a safe location. So do that before you get on the road, and that's going to minimize that temptation. So really, really good thing to do to help to keep yourself and everybody safe on the roads.
For everybody out there listening, thank you so much for choosing to spend a little bit of your time with us. Thank you for listening to Leah's message. And all that we ask is that the next time you're behind the wheel and you think about sending a text or scrolling down through your phone, just think of Leah and her children instead. Keep your eyes up, phones down, and you'll help keep your family and others safe and sound.
The Safe and Sound podcast is recorded by the Ohio Department of Public Safety. Links and more information can be found in this episode's show notes. And for more information on all 9 divisions of the Ohio Department of Public Safety, visit publicsafety.ohio.gov.